Greetings. My name is Donovan Conley. I'm a member of the Department of Communication Studies, faculty member, and I've been asked to put together a quick 5-minute or so video on the question of ethics in public speaking. Could talk about this for an entire year, but I'll try to do it in 5 minutes. The question of ethics goes back to the very beginnings of rhetorical thought and study. It's the debate between Plato and the sophists over this question of appearance versus truth. What does rhetoric do? Does it help communicate truth, or does it merely trade in appearances, creating, flattering imagery or, sensations or whatever? So it's tricky. And Plato was the first person to ask the question, what is rhetoric's subject? So in public speaking, what are you learning? What's the subject of public speaking? You're doing a series of speeches. They're all different. They all have different subjects. Plato wondered, what is rhetoric's subject? Or is it just a series of techniques, right? Ultimately, it is really about the technical side of how it is you're trying to communicate with fellow citizens and influence and persuade and cooperate and so on. So there's an ethical component to this. Now, like I said, there's different ways of coming at the question of ethics, but I think for our purposes, we want to think about it in terms of 3 relations. Ethics is about the relation between individuals, right? So think about an ethical relation between yourself and your audience. You can think about an ethical relationship between yourself and yourself or your purpose. And you can think of an ethical relationship between yourself and your subject matter, or the kind of the field that you're engaging. And that's the one I really want to focus on here. The question of how it is that you come up with your presentation, with your performance, your speech. This is the inventional process that you've probably learned about. Invention is about all of the little choices that you make as you move from, deciding you're going to give a speech, or being told you're going to give a speech, or offered, maybe you get paid to give a speech, and all of the little moves that you make along the way in terms of how long it's going to be, how formal or informal, how personal or impersonal, and so on. Your use of emotion, your use of reason, facts, All of these things are choices, and that's the inventional process. Now, the way I think that we as orators or speakers should approach this inventional question is along the lines of the way journalists approach the job of investigating their stories. So you can think about the journalistic code of ethics. And if you just Google what that means, you'll find lots of good things. But for our purposes, a couple things to keep in mind. As you're coming up, you're doing your research, confirm and verify. Confirm and verify. Don't just go and find the one good source and then, convince yourself that that's gospel truth, right? You want to, as best as possible, represent the field in question, of the area of inquiry, as accurately and fairly and with as much transparency and honesty and openness as you possibly can. Don't cherry pick. Don't just find the thing that promotes your, predetermined conclusion, but really do try to do the research and try to understand, the ins and outs of the question, right, as honestly as possible. So confirm and verify. Keep searching. All right. When you find some redundancy and some repetition is when you're in better shape, right? Related to that is maybe think about counterfactuals, or the sort of the devil's advocate kind of question is, if you're, I've seen this speech many times, the importance of drinking water. We live in the desert. It's, second nature to us. But back in Illinois, where I went to grad school, there's a lot of speeches on the importance of drinking 8 glasses of water a day. And maybe your speech is along these lines, and you find an article that says if you drink 2 glasses of water a day, you're going to live 10 years longer, right? Well, that might really promote your argument, but is it accurate? Is it true? Is it consistent with the findings in the field? So play devil's advocate with yourself. Like, what if I'm wrong? Or let me go find the disagreement, and then I'll know what kind of shape I'm in terms of my argument. Modulating your claims is important. Not everything is 100% or 0%, like all or nothing. This is Aristotle's realm of the probable. He talks about, things that are more or less true. So you want to try to make your claims reflect the degree of accuracy, right? So things happen sometimes, or generally, or frequently, or often, but not always, right? So try to modulate how you're talking about things in accordance with the actual findings that are out there. Think about context, think about motives, why people say the things they do in the context that they're coming in. Don't yank things out of context. We've all, I'm sure, been misquoted or taken something that we've said out of context, and it drives us crazy. So try to respect the research that's out there, right? I'm already close to 6 minutes, so I need to kind of wrap up here. But your relationship to your subject matter, I think, is more important than ever. We've entered like crazy times where people just kind of believe things and say things sort of at the spur of the moment. We retweet, we like without reading things. That's bad moves, rhetorically speaking. We want to really immerse ourselves in a field and let it tell us what is, reliable and what is more or less true. Okay, so respect that process as much as possible. And then you respect your audience, and it all kind of begins there, I think, right? So taking that kind of journalistic code of ethics approach, I think, is a good way to think about, what you're doing and how you're proceeding through that inventional process. So best of luck with it. Think about your audience, think about your purpose, but also be thinking hard about how it is you're dealing with the material and how you're putting it together, because that's really important and powerful. It goes right back to the beginning of the field. So hope that's helpful, and best of luck with your projects.